Hello, class. All right. Today we're going over something that Marie sent out. Um, it's on bullying and what bullying is, and you know, kind of how it makes you feel, but more what it is and how we can combat it. Or at least I'm gonna, relay personal things as well to, make sure that the point hits home. But it is important that we know that, there's all sorts of different types of bullying. And it happens everywhere. It happens all the time with different people and in different ways. And the thing is that bullying is a learned behavior. It's something that over time, you either kind of adopt or you stray away from or you hide from. And really what the point of most classes is how to avoid this and how to deal with it in your personal life. But first, you have to know what it is. So we're going to go over what is bullying. Like, what is it exactly? And this is put on by the DDS, or the Department of Developmental Services, for safety at each program. And, every program's different. Every program I've worked for, including ours, I have noticed people being bullied. And a lot of people point the finger and say, oh yeah, I know who it is, that person bullies. But I've also noticed people who don't back up other people, who don't say, hey, you need to stop bullying that person. That's not right. And not only, sometimes a lot of people think that it's up to the staff and say, I need to go get the staff. Well, it's also up to you to stop it. Because the staff's not going to be there at every point in your life. Your parents not going to be there at every point in your life. At some point, you have to make that conscious decision to say, I'm not going to let this happen to this person right now. And I'm going to do the right thing. So, like I said, I've seen it at every program. I've seen it at different levels. I've worked at a lot of different programs. And there are some programs that not even bullying. It's just violence. So, what we can do is be an example as to how to A, not bully, and B, stand up for people that are being bullied. Being the sort of anti-bully. Being an advocate for other people. And that's what we want to do. So what is bullying? At least according to the DDS. So bullying is when somebody teases you or calls you names. And, name calling is well, first of all, it's childish. It's pretty immature to call people names. However, it is something that, I don't want anyone to get used to it. It can start out as a little something like, like poking somebody, and that's teasing, or whispering things to them, and thinking that it's funny. When you don't really know, you're not that person, so you don't know how it's affecting them. It could be that they're just playing right around with you, but the main people that you know that with are your friends, that are really your friends, that'll say, hey, knock it off, this isn't funny anymore. And then you're like, all right, cross the line with my friend, so I'm going to knock it off. The person who doesn't say anything and just kind of, shies away, that person you're probably tormenting. You're bullying them. And it is something that is not acceptable. And when it comes to name calling, I don't want anybody to get used to that either. I grew up around people where, name calling can come in different ways. People can call you childish names, but people can also just call you stupid. Or say, you need help with everything. Or I've heard things like, you need a wet nurse because you can't take care of yourself. Now, no matter what, and they'll justify it. They'll be like, oh, no, but it is. Look at you. You can't do anything. But that's bullying. Does that help anything? Does it help to point out that somebody needs help? or is the point to be, this way is not working, let's try a new avenue? But calling somebody names is only going to beat them down a little bit more. And eventually, you have to either rise up and fight against it, or some people just decide to get used to it and say, maybe that is me. Maybe that is all I'm worth. That's what I've heard. But I don't want anyone here, and I don't want you to do it to anybody, but I don't want anybody here to get used to that. To get used to being called names. Because you're not that. I know each and every one person at program, and I can name several wonderful things about them. We all have our bad qualities. So do I. I can talk too much. I can be too loud. People point things out about me all the time. The point is, most of the time, though, they'll say nice things. And in a way, you kind of have to demand that. Not that you need it as sort of self-recognition, but to say, I'm not going to listen to anybody that calls me names. They're not worth my time. I don't need them as a friend. I have plenty of friends that actually care about me, that I care about as well. So, again, I don't want you to get used to it. People are calling you names and it's getting on your nerves, or it's something bothersome. You need to speak up for yourself first and foremost. You need to speak up for yourself. Secondly, if it just doesn't stop and it's at program, then we need to get other people involved after you stand up for yourself. But first, stand up for yourself. So again, bullying is when somebody teases you or calls you names. And look how that person feels. You can see it in her face. And this one is a picture that I recognize, but you can't... I don't know. The picture's not very good for this one. But bullying is when somebody scares you or yells at you. But see that face? That's probably the most intimidating face that you're going to see. Is when somebody scares you or yells at you. And I'll tell you this much, there is pretty much absolutely no reason that a staff member, that a friend, that anyone should scare you into doing what they think you need to be doing. Ever. That is never the right response. If somebody's scaring you into it, that means they just have lost all sense of how to actually teach. And if somebody's yelling at you and screaming at your face, what do most people do? That's a question for you. I'm going to answer it. But it's a question for you. Think about it for a moment. What do you do, usually, when somebody's screaming at you or yelling at you? Do you open up and say, oh, this sounds like a good time for discussion? All right, you're yelling and you're in my face. And you're pointing at me. This seems like a lively conversation. I'm being a little sarcastic here. But is it a time for dialogue? Does that person seem open to having a dialogue or a talk with you? Or does it seem like they just want to get their point across and you better do it? Otherwise, who knows? Who knows what the repercussions are? Well, the answer to the question is most people, they shut down. When somebody's yelling at them, people shut down. Or walk away. That's what I do. That's probably the best thing to do, is just walk away. Kind of look at them like, I don't need this. And I don't have to stay here for your abuse. Now, like I said, most of the time there is absolutely and should never, from any staff or anybody, be a moment of yelling. Except if it comes to a person's safety. So, we have to see the difference between the two. If somebody's yelling at you because they want you to sit down, that's not acceptable. Somebody's yelling at you because you're standing in the middle of the road and a car's coming towards you and like, get out of the street. You have to yell. If you didn't, you could get hit by a car and really terrible things would happen. But again, we need to learn to differentiate. Or if you see somebody hurting somebody from far off, And you need to make sure that that stops. And I've been in this situation many times, like, hey, stop it. Like, you need to stop that. As you're running over there, stop. Like, everybody, like, I've seen fights and I've had to break them up. Like, no, we need to separate. Stop. But that's helping yelling. You know, you don't yell at the person, you're yelling about the situation. When somebody's just yelling at you, that is bullying. If somebody gets in your face or tries to scare you, and with violence or anything, that's just bullying. That's just because somebody doesn't know any better way. And, you know, eventually they'll find out. Most bullies run into somebody eventually that's bigger and stronger than they are and will scare them. And they probably already had that in their life. Most bullies, like I said, it's a learned behavior. They grew up with a father or a mother or a grandpa or an uncle who yelled at them, or were around people or foster parents. I've seen that too, that just yelled at people, that scared people into submission. And it becomes learned. That's what you start to understand. Like, well, this is how I've seen it, so this is how I have to do. But it's not. We can do other things. So bullying is when someone pushes you around. Yeah, threatening you. Like, I'm gonna get you. And I'll get into more stories about myself, but later on. But, you know, again, you don't need that in your life. And these are situations where you don't back down. There's 3 things that people typically do when somebody pushes you around. They call it fight, flight, and now there's a third one, or freeze. So fight means you stand up and you say, I'm not going to deal with this. And not physically fighting, but like, I'll go towards this as opposed to away from it. Some people, when somebody's pushing them around, they run. They say, I'm out of here. I'm going the other direction. Like, and I'm not going to look back. And then there's freeze, where somebody just doesn't know what to do. Like, I'm not used to this. I'm just stuck here. And they don't know what to do. They're not like engaged in anything. They've sunk into themselves in a way. Now, when it comes to this, when somebody pushes you around, and bullying is that, if somebody's pushing you around, anyone, be it a staff member, be it a friend, be it somebody at a store that we go to, or be it anywhere that we go at all, and anyone starts to push you around, what you need to do, the best thing to do, is stand your ground. I'm not saying engage the person if they want to fight. The best thing to probably do is, but stand your ground. Stand there and be like, listen, I don't want to fight. You know, I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm going to walk away from this. And, you know, and let them know, though. And it's same anywhere. If somebody's pushing you around, they're going to assume that you're somebody that will let them do that all the time. The best thing to do is stand your ground. I'm not saying engage in a fight. I'm not saying become violent, but stand your ground. You have to stand your ground against a bully. Even if and you're really convinced, you don't know. They're probably just as scared as you are. They don't want you to react. But at the same time, I don't believe in violence. I don't think that that's any answer. But let them know, like, no, I'm not going to fight you. Just get out of my face, and I'll get out of yours. Let's go our separate ways. But stand your ground and wait till they leave, and you stand your ground and wait till they leave, and then you leave too. Simple enough. Now, if you really need backup, then, you know, definitely, if it's a situation you can't handle, and it's at program, please bring in a staff member, especially if it's out in the community. You know, because we're trained for this. But there's no training that makes every situation perfect. I'll tell you this much. You don't know that other person. I've been in some strange situations at different programs where I'm like, this is a new one for me. But the main thing I know is you got to keep a cool head. You have to assess the situation and take things slow. Don't act on your first instinct. Take things slow. But nobody should be pushing you around. Nobody should be threatening you. Nobody a program. Any of the individuals are doing that, that is something that definitely a lot more conversation will be had about. Because our program is designed for us to help each other. We're a team. In some ways, we're like a giant family. For me, it's more that we're a team. We work together. Because families, at the end of the day, you go home and you're still with them. But a team, when you're together and you're on that team, it's like a family during that time. Take, say, the Utah Jazz right there, the basketball team. When they're on the court together, they are family. And they'll fight for each other. And it's us. And we'll get it done. And that's how we are at Vistability, at Inroads. We are Inroads. And we fight for each other. And we stand up for each other. And it's the truth. That's what I love about this place. Alright. Now this gets into how bullying might make you feel. If you're bullied every day. Or bullied at all. Bullying can make you feel sad and depressed. And I'll get into more about that with my own personal story later on, because it does ask us to share. But it does. It makes people... people take it personally when you bully them. They think there's something wrong with them. When typically there is something wrong with the bully. They need to talk to somebody too. But it doesn't mean that it excuses anything that they're doing, because it makes the other person feel like I'm inadequate. And not only that, like they feel sad inside for themselves, but then depression, it's a little different. Like, I don't want to go to program anymore. I'm going to have to see this person. And they bully me all the time. Like, why would I want to go there? I want to go to a place that's happy, that makes me feel good. But if you bully somebody, or if you're being bullied, this is usually how it manifests. As one of the things, or two of the things, sad and or depressed. And again, bullying can make you feel afraid. I don't want to go to program. I don't want to be in this environment. And I'll go into more with my story, but I don't want to go there. I hate it. It's scary. It makes me feel terrible. I don't know what's going to happen every day. And then bullying can make you feel angry and upset. So if you take all these things, you feel sad, you feel depressed inside, you become afraid of the world and kind of how it is and how it's been set up for you. And then it hits a point where you feel anger. Well, what usually happens? A lot of times, like I said, it's a learned behavior. When you start to get angry, you're going to take it out on somebody else and start to be a bully yourself. Because you get angry and either you attack the person, but most of the time people are too afraid of their bully. So they attack somebody that they know they can attack. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. Whereas if everybody stood up, because there's strength in numbers, my friends. If people just stood up and said, we're not going to let this happen. This needs to stop. Let's stand up. Let's hold arms. Let's lock arms. It's like the NBA is doing with a lot of things that are going on right now with social unrest. We need to stop this. And it's up to us to stop it. And we'll lock arms. We'll band together. And it's not just the NBA. The NFL is doing it. Baseball is doing it. Sports are doing it. But all across the country, people are banding together saying, we're not going to put up with, we're not going to accept the way things have been and the way things continue to go. as long as people are going to do this. And again, this anger can either come out violently or it can come out as a unity. And we do this together. Bullying can also make you feel alone, isolated. And, bad things happen when people feel that way. You don't feel like you have anybody in the world. And again, I'll get into my story. But that's how people feel. They feel alone, they feel isolated, they feel as though there's nobody they can turn to. And they're angry inside, they're depressed, they're afraid, deep inside of them. And that is a difficult thing to live with. And it manifests sometimes in very scary ways. But if just somebody decided to stand up and be a friend to that person, somebody decided to stand up and say, I'm not going to let this happen. This person's a nice person. They don't deserve this. No, I'm going to be there for them. Okay, and so this one is, have you or a friend ever been bullied? How did it make you or your friend feel? So again, have you ever been bullied? Some people get through life and I guess they never get bullied. Maybe they're the bully. I don't know. But like I said, so when I was younger, in junior high, I was starting. And my parents got divorced during that time. Like right before I started junior high. I loved elementary school. I wasn't great in school, but I loved it. Had a lot of friends. And then I went to junior high, and my family was changing. So my dad wasn't living there anymore, and my mom wasn't, all the way there because people get sad, when it comes to divorce. But, I don't need to get into all of that. I'm sure some of you have experienced the same sort of thing. And so my life was kind of upside down. But I started junior high. All the friends I had in elementary school, suddenly it was a whole new world. It's like we're not kids anymore. People started wearing clothes, and clothes meant you were, depending on what you wore, meant you were of a better social strata, or you were a better person. And if you didn't wear those clothes, then you were mocked and you were made fun of. And for us, when we did, you go through K through 6, and then 7th and 8th grade is, junior high. And so for 2 years, I was bullied pretty much every day by different people. And I felt all the things that they felt. And I never told anybody. Nobody ever stood up for me. But I also never went home and told anybody. I mean, any of the bruises or things like that I might have had, I learned how to hide those. Because, my family was already going through a difficult time. So I was like, I don't want them to have to deal with this burden. And having glasses didn't help, There's a lot more to this story, but I got to keep it short. But I was definitely bullied for a good portion of time. And I didn't have any friends. 0. Zip. And it was weird to go from having a lot of friends to honestly having 0 friends and being bullied every day. And I did feel alone, and I didn't really feel angry, though. I felt more depressed than anything. That, people tell you things your whole life, and they say, oh, we'd be there for you. Friends don't ditch out on you. Family's always going to be there for you. And then you hit a point where you really realize that it's like, nobody really knows. And I'm here all by myself. And that's the alone portion. And so I got through it. And one day, I had to make the choice. And I made the choice that I wasn't going to be bullied anymore. I said to myself, that's it. I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I'm done. And it was a weird switch in my head. Because I remember it was in high school when it happened, my sophomore year. And I just switched. And then I decided to take a whole other route in life because it was weird. People were actually not afraid of me, but intimidated by me because I wouldn't let myself be bullied. Also, I shot up really tall. I went from being 5 foot nothing to 6 feet tall, which always helps. But then I decided, you know what? I'm not gonna let people bully other people in front of me ever again. People watch me be bullied all the time, and they didn't do anything. Never once. People who I even saw in high school, and they're like, "Oh, we're anti-bullies," and we're this. I'm like, "No, you're not. Like, at least not in junior high, you weren't, because you watch stuff go on all the time and just turn the cheek." I didn't see anything. And so I decided in high school, like, that's not going to happen. Not on my watch, not in front of anybody. And again, it wasn't that I was going to fight anybody, but I would stand there with the person. I'm like, why are you bothering my friend here? Even if I didn't know the person, I would call them my friend. Because most of the time, they really were my friend. They were a common ally in a common situation that I had been through. So in a way, we really understood each other. And we would stand up for each other. And like I said, there's strength in numbers, strength in unity. But that's my story. I know what it's like to be bullied. But I also know what it's like to put my foot down saying it never happen again, and it never has happened again. I've had people try to intimidate me. But there's a point where you hit where you're not really afraid of it anymore. You're you. And be uniquely you. Please, I love all of you. I care about you all so much. Be uniquely you. Always. Okay, last thing. And it's more philia. There's different types of love. There's eros, agape, philia. But love of my community, love of my friends. So, have you ever bullied someone? So, how did it make you feel? And how do you think they felt? Have you ever bullied someone? I can say with almost all confidence that I've seen different forms of bullying from almost everyone at our program. Depending on the day the person's having, and sometimes maybe it's not bullying, but they're definitely taking things out on people in a bullying fashion. But how does it make you feel? A lot of times, you go home and you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel like, why did I do that? And the thing is that tomorrow's a new day. You can always apologize to that person and say, I had a bad day yesterday. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Because it will make you think, how did that make them feel? Especially for me, that I've been bullied. And there are days where I'm like, was I bullied to that person? Was that wrong of me? And so I have to ask the question myself, have I ever bullied somebody? I would say yes. But, and there shouldn't be a but in my family, I'm the oldest boy, and I have 4 brothers. I wasn't always the best big brother. And there were times I definitely exercised my right as a big brother, and I think that I bullied my brothers a little bit too much. And I feel bad about it. I talk to them, and they remind me. They'll tell me stories, and I'm like, really? I did that? And, it's not nice. Some of the things I did. But they'll also remind me that especially when my parents were getting divorced, being the oldest boy, my dad wasn't really around. And the way I went about things was to make sure that they would never be bullied by anybody else. In a way, it's that weird sort of, when it comes to family, like that's my brother. I mean, my sisters, you don't hit a woman ever. I never really hit my brothers, but I would hold them down and wrestle with them and things. But my sisters, I just kind of left alone, like whatever. They had their own thing. Love my sisters, don't get me wrong. But when it came to my brothers, there are things I wish I had done a lot differently. But I also made sure, like I said, that there's that's my family. Nobody else from the outside will ever hurt them. Not on my watch, not ever. But I do know how it made them feel, and how it made me feel is I still regret it to this day. And how they feel, I know. They were not happy, and they tell me this is how you made me feel, and part of it sticks with me to this day. That's them saying that it still affects them sometimes. Some of the things that I did, but the only thing you can do is understand and do my best. And most of them have actually moved on quite a bit. But like I said, I wish I could take things back. And that's a whole reason not to bully. You'll hit a point in your life where you'll realize that you could have made a lot more friends and done a lot more positively. And look back on your life positively. And I know that, ultimately, I know that most of the things I did were positive. And my brothers always tell me, well, we don't want you to feel bad about this. Like, we're fine. Like, we're alive and we're happy. We have well-adjusted lives, so it's not like you affected us that much. But at the same time, it affects me. But they bullied each other too, so they have their own internal skirmish. And again, that's family. So, But again, think about it. Have you ever bullied somebody? Even if it's small. Have you ever bullied somebody? How does that make you feel? Again, if it makes you feel strong, you need to reach out and talk to somebody. Because that's not the right way to feel strong. Standing up for somebody is the right way to feel strong. And the main reason is, how do you think it makes them feel? And if your answer is it makes them feel as low as I feel inside, then again, that means you need to talk to somebody. And you can turn to staff, you can turn to me, you can turn to anybody. But, we need to make sure that these things don't happen. We need to come together as a community, as our own small community, and then build out as a bigger community, just say in Richmond. And then in Contra Costa County, state of California, United States of America, the Americas, and then the world. And maybe it won't happen in our lifetimes, but we need to work towards it. Work towards it for everyone else. But anyway, the majority of everyone I know at program, you all are wonderful people. I've seen you do amazing things, and amazing things for each other that astound and put me in awe. And I'm always happy to see it. But anyway, peace. Let's try to get through this world, be the anti-bully, and help people out. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Ciao for now.